Since I'm talking about tenor players, of course I have to mention Sonny Rollins. And I decided to pick this one because in my own personal evolution as a musician, this one had a real meaning for me. You know, again, Sonny is an artist that went through several periods. You know, his first period was basically almost perfection, one could say. You know, up until like Saxophone Colossus. I mean, you wouldn't ever think about changing a note, and everything was right where it's supposed to be, perfect, brilliantly organized by an incredible musical mind. His next phase was what one might call almost musical cubism, where he began to use that same language but sort of distort it in different ways and move it in unusual rhythmic ways. And this was all going on while Coltrane was at the top of his game, breaking ground all the time. So people sort of maybe forgot about Sonny Rollins briefly during that point. All this was going on like 63, 64, 65. What I find really interesting about this is what he does rhythmically on here. He plays rhythms in a way that probably are not even notatable. I mean, maybe Gunther Schuller could do it with, you know, like under a bracket of 6 subdivided down to 64th notes, but basically he was able to play in the cracks rhythmically in a way that I'd never heard anybody ever do and make it swing. And I was completely fascinated by what this was. Sonny kept evolving. And in fact, I had another friend who auditioned for him and went up to his place, and they played just duets. And he said Sonny spent a long time counting off a song, making sure that he was clear on what the tempo was. Then he'd start to play, and he'd play right in it, dead center, you know, just like right where the hump is. Then he'd start to mess with it, and he'd play way behind the beat. And then he'd go back, and he'd play way on top of the beat. And what he was looking for was to see if the drummer could hold their place through all that manipulation. Because what he was doing was very similar to what Train was doing. Train was creating another type of tension and release by superimposing harmony over other harmony. Sonny was doing it with rhythms. So he would play against the time, like really against it, then bring it right back in and put it right in the pocket. And he'd keep going back and forth, creating this tension and release in the music, very much the same way Train was doing it with harmony. I mean, I never spoke to him about it, you know, obviously, but this is what I got from it. So this is a very important, and these outtakes, he was really letting a lot of stuff fly. But the outtakes, you can tell, like there's a 15-minute version of Now's the Time in B, and he's trying all sorts of stuff, and that, you know, that's really interesting. So that's why I chose this. But this is Miles with the quintet with Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, and Tony Williams at the Plug Nickel. When I was about 19 years old, I was on this summer after my sophomore year at New England Conservatory, I was on a gig 7 nights a week for 3 months in Nantucket, playing jazz every night with a great piano player who played kind of like Horace Silver, the wonderful drummer Akira Tana, who was in Boston at the time. And at that time, Akira gave me the original, a cassette of the original issue of Live at the Plug Nickel, which was a double LP from Japan only. And I listened to that during this period when I was working every night. And I got so much from this record. The band, especially Wayne Shorter on here, was, my mind was completely blown by this one too. Wayne's interpretation of a lot of the standard Miles repertoire. First of all, the band plays a lot differently on this record. There's a lot more space in the music. And Wayne almost creates this feeling of like an atonal Lester Young at parts, where it's so melodic and so like floating yet in there. He just extrapolates way beyond playing chord changes. It's all based on the strength of the melodic line, and the band is just with him. Herbie is just right with him. He could be playing a half step away from what the harmony is, and still it sounds completely tonal. In my personal development, this record completely blew me away. Everything on there, but especially Wayne Shorter. And the box sets that came out, the 10 CD box set, every note of that is worth its weight in gold to me. So Wayne Shorter. Again, with tenor players, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Stan Getz, who I think influenced all of us in some way, shape, or another. And this is cheating a little bit because this is a 3 or 4 record box set, which encompasses some of my favorite records of his. One of the first jazz records I remember buying just by chance was his record Sweet Rain with Chick Corea, Ron Carter, and Grady Tate. To me, it's always been a perfect record and beautifully recorded, and some great compositions by Chick as well as some more traditional stuff. Another record of his, which is included in this, was his collaboration with the great Eddie Sauter, Focus, which was one of the most successful crossover between classical and jazz, and also features the incredible brushwork of Roy Haynes, which holds it together, keeps it solidly in the jazz realm. But there's some great writing and some great improvising by Stan over a very unusual string context written by Eddie Sauter. So Stan Getz, I believe there's a quote John Coltrane said, if we'd all play like him if we could. That's good enough for me. Okay, Ken, the next one that I've chosen is a recording by the great Leontine Price, a wonderful operatic singer from the 60s, who had a very close relationship with the composer Benjamin Britten. And my daughter, you'd say maybe this is an unusual choice for a jazz tenor player to be picking, but my daughter, when she was younger, got very involved with opera and was singing a lot, and right through college was singing opera. So I kind of encouraged her listening and started to actually investigate it more myself. I found a recording of an aria from an opera called Antony and Cleopatra. called Bring Me My Robe that I found as compelling as anything I've ever listened to, not only in terms of the emotion of the performance, but actually the content of the music. I was completely blown away. I mean, I put her rendition of that aria on par with the Love Supreme. It's deep. I mean, and so it opened up my ears to the world of opera much further. When I was at New England Conservatory, I heard a lot of performances. I did hear a great performance of the Alban Berg opera, Utzek, with Gunther Schuller conducting up there, and was really struck by that. But this, Benjamin Britten as a composer is still using very melodic sounds, but not in a traditional tonal way. Yet it's not a mathematical kind of approach like the Schoenberg School or Berg or Webern or any of them. It's a very lyrical approach, and I found it, because I write a lot of music, I found a lot of inspiration in the way he moves through harmony, which is not at all diatonic, not at all 12-tone. It's just he has a language, and the language is moving one sound to another, and it makes sense to me. And her singing will make sense to anybody who's got a heart, in my opinion.